gamers, this is the new tier list for the new patch that's coming out. I don't know when you're going to be watching this. Today's 25th of June. On 26th, the new patch most likely is going to be dropping. Now, I reviewed that patch on my stream. There's not a lot of changes. There's not a lot of like fun changes, but there's a lot of big changes. So things that are happening is the deer pushing is getting nerfed. House of Lancaster is getting nerfed. Rus is receiving a small nerf. H3 is receiving a small nerf. Some other civs are getting small buffs. And now, obviously, I have not played the new patch, so I'm going to make a prediction, in my opinion, which civs are going to be good, which civs are not, if anything is even going to change. We're going to start with one that, in my opinion, is probably not going to change much, if at all. And that one is going to be HRE. Now, HRE, I'm still going to give it S tier. It is getting a nerf, which is 5% nerf on their early game economy. So a 5% nerf on Dark Age, 5% nerf on Feudal, Castle, and Imperial, as well as like it's going to impact gold mining, farming, wood chopping, sheep gathering at the start, which is good amount. 5% doesn't sound like a lot, but because it's you're dealing with 20, 30 villagers gathering, it is quite a bit. I do still think that it will be S tier. I don't think it's going to, obviously it's a nerf, it's going to be a bit weaker, but I do think that it's probably going to be slightly weaker. Maybe there's going to be some timings against HRE where you're not dying straight up to them as you used to before, but that's kind of where I'm landing at with HRE. Now the civ that also received nerfs that was S tier, I got my tier list on the second screen over here, that did receive a nerf as well, which is Rus. They received a nerf in the High Trade House. So for those that don't know, High Trade House, I think got the radius got nerfed, which might not seem like a lot, but if you were getting, I'm assuming, right? If you were getting 130 gold, you might be getting 80 or 90 gold when you place the High Trade House, which is, to be fair, like a big nerf for the landmark, but does it matter overall for Rus? I don't think so, and I think it is going to remain one of the best civs in the game, although slightly weaker. And I would even say that Rus's nerf was smaller than HRE nerf, because HRE nerf impacts all their ages. Rus nerf only impacts if you go High Trade House and in Castle onwards, right? Like High Trade House, you build it because it gives you deer and it gets your bounty up to tier 3. You don't necessarily build it for gold income. You already have too much gold with Rus, which is why I don't think this nerf for Rus is not very impactful. Next civilization we'll be talking about is going to be Abbasid. Abbasid I put in D tier last time, and Abbasid is getting a buff, 2 buffs actually. One of them is the boot camp is going from 50 food, 125 gold to 25 food, 75 gold, so it's a very tiny buff in the military wing. And then the fresh foodstuffs, I think, is going from 30 to 35% or 35% to 40, something like that, which is making your villagers cheaper, like 3 or 4 food per villager. Now, I will say it is a good buff, but it's not the buff that Abbasid needs. That's the problem. The strongest thing about Abbasid is that they're producing villagers cheaper, and they can go 2TC, right? All their economic stuff is cheaper, yada. That's the strongest part. That's not the problem with Abbasid. The problem with Abbasid is slow age up in House of Wisdom. Like, I think Abbasid would benefit way more if you gave them a 10 or 15% faster age up time, or you gave them something on age up with every wing, similar to what Ayyubid has. The problem with Abbasid isn't that their villagers are too expensive or now they're going to get more value from that. So for that reason, I don't think much will change for Abbasid, at least at the top level. So I'm going to still put Abbasid in D tier. Now, I do want to say this tier list, this is a disclaimer, this tier list is for entertainment purposes only. If you're not at a tippity top level, this is not why you're losing games in Gold League or Silver or Plat or Diamond or Conk 1 or Conk 2 or Conk 3. This is my opinion for entertainment purposes at the tippity top level, okay? Does this mean you can't play Abbasid in Diamond? you can still play Abbasid in Diamond. Okay, nothing is gonna hurt you. The next civilization we'll be discussing is going to be one that, if I remember correctly, did not receive any buffs or nerfs, and Twitch chat and YouTube chat can correct me on this. It is Ayyubid. Well, nothing has changed. I still think it's better than Abbasid. Is it crazy good? I don't think so. In tournaments, I think in the last weekend of the tournament, we haven't seen Ayyubid once. I do think Ayyubid can/will see some play, but I just think it doesn't have any big timings, any big strengths, and the pro scouting meta is still here, and Ayyubid does not pro scout. So there it is. And also the deer pushing did not really impact Ayyubid because, or actually it kind of did. It did and it didn't, because a lot of Ayyubid builds do rely on you going dervish and feudal and then pushing the deer to your town center. So now that the deer pushing is nerfed, even though Ayyubid didn't do it too much, whatever they did do it, well, now they can't. Next civilization we'll be talking about is going to be... Now, I do want to say one thing. I put House of Lancaster in tier list of May in A tier. That should have been S tier, okay? I'm gonna be honest. That should have been an S tier. Right now, where would I put House of Lancaster? House of Lancaster received multiple nerfs. Like, I think they received like 8 or 9 nerfs. Last tier list, I put him in A tier, and then, you know, the more I played, I was like, okay, this is probably actually the most broken civ still. So I would give them S tier back in the day, or, you know, for the previous one if I could. But right now, they did receive a shit ton of nerfs. So I don't think they're S tier anymore, like they were, you know, until basically today. I would give them at the very least A tier or maybe B tier. They received so many nerfs that I would actually have to play quite a few games to realize, like, okay, how bad is it? How big are the nerfs and so on and so forth? Because there's been too many nerfs at the same time, and I think the only way to figure those things out is to probably test them out. I do still think it's going to be at the very least A tier, because when a civ goes from like ridiculous overpowered, even with a shit ton of nerfs, it's not going to go to like C tier. You know, it wasn't nerfed that badly. So I'm going to give it A tier for now. But like I said, I haven't played a new patch. It might still be S tier, or it might be B tier. I don't know. I doubt. I think it's probably going to be A tier, because they did, like I said, they kind of got butchered quite a bit. So deer pushing is there for every civilization, obviously, but House of Lancaster at the top level was a civ that was always pushed the deer to their town center. And I want to touch upon HRE and Rus. Yeah, HRE also did push the deer, but HRE can't just go pro scouts or make farms and they're fine. Rus did push the deer, but that was just like another advantage that they had. Even without the deer pushing, Rus is probably still going to be pretty good. All right, next civilization we'll be talking about is going to be, let's do Order of the Dragon. I rated Order of the Dragon D tier last time. I think it has some use. We do see it from time to time, so I'm gonna just put it in C tier. I don't think it's next to Abbasid. We've seen some players try to TC. We've seen some castle rushes with Burger, but I feel like the problem with OTD is I don't see a situation where I would pick OTD instead of another civ, which is kind of the main reason why I think it's just not as good. Now, I'm going to rate these, by the way. Oh, the season is over. I was going to check the maps. I am going to rate the civ tier list based on land maps only. So I know a majority of you don't play water maps, so I'm not going to rate them based off tournament maps, because I think in tournaments things are completely different. Like in tournaments I would put Mongol very high just because it has a lot of picks, same as KT, but I'm going to rate this civ tier list off of land maps, okay? Just because I'm making it for you guys, right? Even though it's for top tier level, but you know, little bit of a mix. The next civilization we'll be talking about is going to be China. And that is going to be S tier still. Deer pushing got nerfed. China did not really receive... China got buffed, actually. They received Fire Lancers buff. But other than that, China is untouched. Pro scouting is untouched. So I don't see China going down. I mean, there's no reason for it. Like, a lot of the stuff got nerfed. They were unaffected. So they're still going to remain in S tier. And Zhu Xi Legacy goes well together for the same reasons. It's a variant. They play very similarly. Oh, that's true. Thank you for reminding me. So there was a change about pro scouting, which is actually like a quality of life, but it's actually a buff to HRE, OTD, China, and Zhu Xi Legacy. So for those that don't know, if you shift click your deer and then you change drop off location, the scout will stop and it will lose all the shift Q commands you've given it. But in the new patch, if you shift kill the deer and then you change the location of the drop-off, the scout will continue working as normal. So, unironically, HRE, China, Zhu Xi, and OTD got big buffs in terms of quality of life with pro scouting, because with those civs, you had to put deer on the chapels or on the mill for China and Zhu Xi. So it is a very good change, like just quality of life change, but it does impact the gameplay, because every time you make a scout with China and Zhu Xi, now you have to make the scout, then manually click it to the mill to drop off, and then go shift queue the deer. So you have to actually shift queue like 10 times with 10 different scouts. Now you can just shift queue them on the deer and then just press drop off location. So it's pretty big, to be fair. So it got even better, I guess, in that sense. Next one we will be talking about is going to be English. Let's do English. I'm gonna be honest, I've been cooking a little bit with English. Don't think English is as bad, or is going to be as bad as Abbasid, and I don't know if it's quite gonna be B tier. Still yet to be seen. English did receive a buff, and the deer pushing got nerfed. So English was one of the civs that did not do deer pushing, but it did receive the farming buff 5%. Okay, so this is kind of very similar to the HRE one. The 5% doesn't sound like a lot, but if you have 30 farms, or even if you do early farms, it helps your economy, it boosts your economy in a quite noticeable way. And I can see English being even like a B tier. For now, I'm going to put it C tier. It's an improvement. Last time it was D tier. But it's one of those changes where unless you play with it and get a feel for it, you can't be like, oh yeah, that's going to be so much better. You're going to be able to beat all these civs. You don't know until you try, right? But I do think it's going to be better. And maybe, maybe English after like a year and a half of no play and pro play, maybe we're going to see English slowly come back to it. We'll see. The next civilization we'll be talking about is going to be... Next one we'll be doing is Ottoman. Now, Ottoman has seen some play in the pro level. It actually has not been doing too well. I think still the same problems with Ottoman exist like before. They did give them some buffs in terms of vizier points, and that's cool, but I don't know how much it's going to help them. Ottoman suffers from a very similar problem that Abbasid has, which is the problem with Ottoman and Abbasid isn't that when they set up they're bad. The problem is the setup part. Once Ottoman sets up military schools and they're age 3 and they're pumping units, yeah, they're great, but getting to that point is very slow, just like Abbasid, and I think that's kind of what's holding them back, because their units are broken as hell. Like Sipahi, Janissary, their landmarks are really good. It just, the military schools are, I think, just really slow. So, next civilization we'll talk about is going to be... I'm going to actually D-rank these a little bit. And we have the first D-ranking, right? Well, technically, the House of Lancaster put it in S tier, right? French. Weird. That's all I'm going to say. Weird. I thought that French is going to just remain just fine. At the start of the year, obviously, I thought French was really good. At this point, we are back to pro scouting meta, but it's a bit slowed down. And I think these civs, when they pro scout against French, are a lot better than it. So usually you play French on maps where these civs are popular, and I feel like these civs just, I mean, they butcher everything, not just French. So I'm gonna have to put French in B tier. I think French also struggles with like pro scouting civs into fast castle. So like China can go pro scouting with some spearmen and just fast castle, and you're like, oh shit, I'm stuck in feudal, and then you die. Yeah, I kind of lost some love for French and JD. I feel like I think they're pretty hard to play against these civs, and if you can't beat these civs and then you're struggling against House of Lancaster, you're probably not gonna have too good of a time. And then right next to it, we're gonna have JD. Beastie's tier list, 90% opinion from Deer. Well, when the meta is Deer, of course you're going to base the tier list off of Deer. That's how that works. So JD, same reasons as French. I would probably put them better than Ottoman though. But still, a bit sad, but it is what it is. Next one we'll be talking about is Byzantine. And now Byzantine is an interesting one. Byzantine might be a little A+, maybe S- kind of angle, because Byzantine was not the civ that was doing any deer pushing, and now there's a lot of civs that just got nerfed, and Byzantine is kind of chilling. They actually buffed Byzantine, but the buff was pretty funny. They buffed the upgrade where whenever your horseman kills a villager, now you get 30 gold, up from 20 gold. But that's completely irrelevant. So Byzantine was A tier last time, and we're gonna put it in A tier once again. Next civilization that did receive nerfs, actually, but I still think that the ranking does not change, is Malians. So for those that don't know, Malians received Mansa Javelinier nerf, where now they are slower, but I think that's the only thing that is nerfed. So Malian, any other style will still be viable. And funnily enough, Malian had like a very interesting, kind of unfortunate circumstance, because a lot of the civs were doing the deer pushing and they were opening barracks. So when you played Malian, not only they open barracks and they like kill your, pit mine and houses, but then they push the deer. So you kind of get like double fucked by the whole barracks opening. Now that the deer pushing is nerfed, you will still get attacked by the barracks opening, but at least they're not going to be able to fall back to a full deer pack in their base. So it's kind of like an indirect buff while getting attacked at the same time for Malian. So I guess that is pretty good. And the cow boom or the Javeliniers are probably still going to be pretty good. All right, the next civilization we'll be discussing is going to be Mongol. Mongol did receive nerf, and the reason I'm putting Mongol on B tier is because Mongol has seen a lot of glory recently at the top level with deer pushing into fast Imperial. We'll put him in B+. I think Mongol is a very interesting civ. It's very all-in, and the reason it's very all-in is if you get to Imperial with Mongol, you're doing well. Because if you rush the Khaganate Palace, that landmark will carry you. But that landmark did just receive nerfs. I think it's like 10% slower build time on all the units in it. But even with that, I think land maps are not where Mongol shines. Mongol shines on some maps that are maybe a little bit weird. Maybe they got a little bit of water, but not full water maps. And I'm basing this off of full land maps, so I'm going to give Mongol B+. The next civilization that I'll be talking about is going to be Delhi. And I put Delhi last time. I'm looking over here in B tier. I think Delhi's back. You know what I mean? I think Delhi's back. No, I don't actually. I'm going to put Delhi in B+. I think Delhi's a great civ, but the problem is it is very predictable. And I've said this for 3 years now, 4 years now, and it's still true. The problem with Delhi, it is predictable. Every opponent knows exactly what you're going to do and exactly what you're going to go for. Everyone knows you're going to make units and you're going to attack. So I do think Delhi is good. I would say it's better than Mongol, but I can't put it next to these civs because I think these civs are just better. And then we're down to 2. And we got a serious downgrade coming in right now. I'm gonna be honest. This will be a strongly educated guess. A guesstimate. I think that in the next patch, last time I put Japanese in A tier, we've seen a rise in Japanese gameplay. We've seen the one thing that Japanese needed was the deer pushing. They had a lot of food under their TC, and that is gone. And I think that the civ that gets affected the most out of any civ by the deer pushing is Japanese, because they used it every single game. Now, the good thing is, Japanese, I think players overall, skill level with Japanese increased quite heavily because of how much people have been playing Japanese recently. But I think I would be crazy to put them in A tier. I think actually Japanese might be down to B tier. Maybe it's a B plus, but I think it's going to be more like a B tier. I think Japanese is going to be back to running out of food, struggling for food, and like either running out of food while getting all in, or simply making units and just running out of food anyway. This is a very similar thing that's happening with Japanese now that happened with OTD. OTD I used to rate it a lot higher because of pro scouting and everything, but pro scouting got nerfed quite heavily, and that impacted OOTD as well. So it is what it is. It is what it is. Maybe, like I said, maybe it's a B plus, but I'm gonna give it a B tier. And then last but not least, we have Knights Templar. Now this civ is very polarizing civ. For those that don't know, Knights Templar is the best water civ in the game, period. Nothing ever even comes close. There's no, if there's a ranked tier list for water, KT is S tier, and then there's no A tier, and then B tier is China and Zhu Xi and HRE, and then there's no C tier, and then every other civ is D tier. That's how much better KT is than every other civ in water. So that being said, they're also OP on hybrid maps. But here we're talking about pure land maps. And if we're talking about pure land maps, KT is not too great. So we're going to give them C tier. And I know someone's going to be in the chat that says, "What do you mean? I can't beat KT when the game is 50 minutes and they got 10 fortresses." Yeah, I can't either, but that's why I beat them in Feudal Age. That is going to be my tier list for the new patch. Obviously, this is me predicting, like I said, which civs are going to be good without playing a lot of the, without playing any of the games actually. So once the patch hits, maybe my opinion will change. And because it's end of June, in July, there's going to be another tier list, because I do one tier list a month on the civilizations, and maybe some things will change. Maybe some civ will go up, some civ will go down, but I am not expecting any like severe changes. Like maybe English goes up one, maybe Japanese goes here, Lancaster maybe goes up or down. These four are pretty much locked. These two are pretty much locked. Mongol land maps, maybe here, maybe goes down a bit. Other than that, I don't see any of the other civs moving too much. So that's it. If you're watching this on YouTube in the video form, I want to thank you so much for watching, brother. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope you check me out live now on YouTube and Twitch in 1440p. That's right. High quality streaming, baby. Thank you guys for watching. People that are watching live, let's keep going.